You're listening to MinerTalk on demand exclusively on 600 ESPN El Paso. Stay up to date with MinerTalk by downloading the free 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app.
The following is an exclusive presentation of Team 600 ESPN El Paso.
Hey El Paso, this is Michelle Smallman, and now it's your turn to sound off on the UTEP game. MinerTalk with Adrian and Sal is coming up next on 600 ESPN El Paso.
All right, welcome back, everybody. MinerTalk is live. We're presented by Jack in the Box. I'm Adrian Broadus. We got a full house tonight. Sal Montes, my co-host, he's back with us on the program. We got George Guajardo, Alberto Reta. We got Chris from Inspo Lens as well. Check us out at Inspo Lens as we continue here on MinerTalk. Wow, what a killer today for the Miners in this one. The Aggies just absolutely dominated UTEP in an 85-57 finale. Let's rip the Band-Aid off, guys. I mean, Jason Hooten is now 16-6 all-time against head coach Joe Golding. That stems back to their Sam Houston versus Abilene Christian days. The Aggies of New Mexico State have won 18 of the last 22 games against UTEP. It was a sold-out crowd. I mean, this was a crowd that UTEP at the athletic department side of things, from their program side of things, from all their fans who go from every single game, they were begging for this. A sold-out crowd for a 12-3, now 12-4 basketball team. And this becomes the third biggest home loss in UTEP basketball history. That's where we start off today, Sal. I feel jaded to this. I'm not, we can let our listeners and the fans out there of UTEP who are real emotional about this kind of stuff chime in about how disappointed they are. I'm jaded to this. This isn't a huge thing for me. I just say this will do everything to hurt UTEP's attendance moving forward, and this also means nothing in the grand scheme of things, because still, you look at the Conference USA tournament, and that's all that matters in Conference USA from top to bottom. But I digress, Sal. You still can't leave this game and say you didn't want to lose this. You didn't want to win this one. It's a 28 blowout loss by New Mexico, by the Miners in this one. New Mexico State came in, took their lunch, celebrated with their fans who made the trip from Las Cruces, and they quieted a sold-out crowd at the Haskins Center.
No, and it was crazy the way that they did it. We were talking about this, George and I, during the post-game show with John, and back here in the studio, we were saying, man, if we had to pick like a certain amount of minutes, for good basketball, it seemed like New Mexico State played somewhere around 35, 36 minutes of good basketball, and the Miners maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And I'm being generous right there. New Mexico State routed UTEP in every single way. They were ready to play, and the Miners weren't. So I don't know how to take I don't want to take too much from it, because the Miners did not show up today. That could be something to take a lot from, if you want to put it that way. But if UTEP's on their game and they're playing New Mexico State, that's where I can judge it a bit more fairly. But today, man, they in general, they dropped the ball, man. I know it doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things in terms of it being a one-bid league, but you definitely feel a lot worse about being a one-bid league now after today, that's for sure, especially against the rival. You've only won 4 games out of 22 these last go-rounds. That's insane, man. It's not a rivalry right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a crazy number to look at right there as we get things started here on MinerTalk, 915-505-6009. You know who didn't lose tonight, though? UTEP Athletics. I mean, UTEP Athletics put on a great show. Fans were engaged throughout the whole night, just didn't have a lot to cheer about positively. But the fan base showed up. You got a chance to see a lot of different people in attendance. Gloria Navarez was there, the Mountain West commissioner. She was there. She gets on the mic, Sal. She starts saying, "Let's go," and no one is into it. I mean, because the Miners are getting killed in the first half. I mean, no one's going to be celebrating that. Mario Mocha was out there. Big shout out to him. He's listening here on the program on MinerTalk as he's heading home. Big shout out to Mario Mocha here on the program as we continue. Also want to say this as far as the Miners go in this one. There was just a lot of people who made the trip out from Cruces. There was a lot of people who made the trip out from out of town to come into town for this one tonight, and the Miners just completely laid an egg. All right, well, I know that this isn't the first time that things like this have happened where there's a lot of hype built up within a single game, and the Miners fall flat. You can look back to 2009, 2010. They had a home loss, 87-80 to New Mexico State. You look at the 2011 Tim Floyd opener. They lost 66-61 to Pacific. You look at the same season. They go to the Conference USA tournament. They go all the way to the championship game, and they fall to Memphis 67-66, an absolute heartbreaking loss.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm bringing back the bad one,
I just forgot about it like this morning.
2013-14, they lost 77-68 to New Mexico State. This was Casey Ross Miller, who dropped 26 points for the Aggies. Cedric Lang dropped 21 for the Miners in that game. Then you got to go 2015-16 season. That year, the Aggies destroyed the Miners at the Don Haskins Center, 73-53. That was Ian Baker, who had 26 for the Aggies. Pascal Siakam, there you go, Sal, 14 for the Aggies in that one right there. That was a horrible home loss for the Miners. And then for other bad home losses that I was looking at, I didn't get to do all of these, but 2016-17 season, they lose to Southeastern Louisiana 72-56. That was terrible. And then the non-conference game, they lose to Lamar in, at home, 66-52. This was a season later, 2017-2018. And after that one, Tim Floyd resigned. So there's been some letdowns in the past when it comes to hyped up games or, games at the Don Haskins Center. But tonight felt different. I'll swing it to you, Alberto, as we welcome you onto the program for the first time. Tonight felt different. Fans showed up tonight, and UTEP simply didn't.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. And I think it's going to leave a prolonged sour taste in your mouth because, like you guys said, this is not only a conference game, but it's a huge rival, and it's been a one-sided rivalry. So I think that you try to really learn from this, but you got to move on quickly. This is conference play. What else are you going to say? Yeah, they eat your lunch in a lot of these categories and most of these categories. But, I mean, as far as rebounding goes, which a lot of the game goes to rebounding, they've been doing that all year. So you're going to have to move forward and just learn from this and try to improve however you can. As far as you said, the fans, they like to jump ship after stuff like this.
As far as the rebound margin goes that you alluded to, 40-21. We'll get some thoughts here from George in just a second. Zay just walked into the studio as well, so we'll get his thoughts chiming in on the program as well. Now at 550-56009, full phone lines. Let's waste no time. We're going to just jump out to our listeners out there right now. We'll start off with Diego, who's joining us to kick things off here on MinerTalk. UTEP gets destroyed tonight. New Mexico State wins 85-57. Diego, welcome aboard. What's going on?
Hey, good night, Adrian. That was one of the worst performances I think I've seen in my time following UTEP athletics. I'm a guy who goes to every game in person, season ticket holder. I don't want to hear anything about Golding, pleading the crowd to show up and, show out and support us and whatever. We were there, man, and I just got to say, I know that it looks good. UTEP's defense looks good when it's working right and they're getting steals and they're flying around. But when it goes the other way and there's no guys under the basket to get a rebound, it's the most frustrating thing ever to watch when NMSU's putting up these shots and there's nobody under the rim to get a freaking rebound. Kalu had what? I think he had more missed field goals and more turnovers than he had rebounds. So just a horrible performance there. And I mean, I'll say this too. The guys on NMSU, Cook and number 21 Carpenter, their other guy, Philip Poverty and Jackson, where did these guys come from? Hooten's rebuilding this program and he's grabbing these guys from D2. He's finding these extremely talented guys. Geez, come on, Golding. Can we get a guy like Carpenter who looks like a freaking NBA guy? Reminds me of Bryson Williams. So man, it's just awful and just a painful loss. And it sucks knowing what the Don can be and knowing what it won't be this season because of this loss. But just one thing, I'll leave you with this, Broadus. I want to ask you about Golding's post-game comments, just saying his team wasn't prepared to play. What do you mean, man? You had a week. You knew this was sold out. What do you mean you weren't prepared to play? Just awful.
Yeah, I hear you, Diego. I appreciate the phone call, man. And you're somebody who has a total green light to say anything about this team right here because you go to every single game. This wasn't one that you just got up for. I think this one was one that you just got a little bit more emotionally invested in because the way the Miners were playing and then the way the Miners just came out and fell flat. The comments post-game from head coach Joe Golding, look, what else is he supposed to say? He put all of it on him when in reality there were a lot of guys who didn't show up in this game. And defensively, I mean, Zay, I'll toss it to you. There were a lot of problems on defense tonight, from missing out on ball screens to just, allowing some really bad things just to happen for New Mexico State. Filipovich, that's how he pronounce his name, by the way. Filipovich somehow feasted down low against the Miners. He was looking, Diego used the term Bryson Williams to describe Robert Carpenter. Well, Filipovich was looking like a little Pascal Siakam down there, the way he was able to make some of those buckets.
Man, Filipovich absolutely exposed those UTEP big men. I mean, they could not keep up with his footwork. He looked really, really good down low. But, defensively, UTEP was just lost, right? I asked Joe Golding, after the game, I'm used to seeing UTEP being aggressive on the ball screen. They kind of trapped the ball handler, and he said, well, they just didn't let us. They played really good, and he really just said it straight out. He got out-coached. They got outplayed. They got out-toughed. Everything that you could say, that's exactly – it went the opposite of UTEP's way. They didn't go after the loose balls. Everything that we're used to seeing out of this team, it was just gone. And it was pretty obvious by the score. I mean, you lose by 28 at home in front of a sold-out crowd. Woo!
Yeah, I hear you, man. Christian Cook was the Conference USA Player of the Week last week for the Aggies. I don't want to give him too much credit. I thought the Miners did a good job containing him, and the second half he started going off. Robert Carpenter off the bench, what a luxury. You talk about Ahmad Bynum coming off the bench for the Miners. Well, he struggled offensively tonight, just 3 points on 1 of 6 scoring. But you look over to another guy in Robert Carpenter, 17 points, 8 of 12. That was his stat line tonight. Also 5 rebounds in this matchup and a block. Robert Carpenter, a nice guy to have off the bench. Back to the phone lines we go. We are wasting no time. 915-505-6009. Full phone lines. Rob is next up with us. Rob, good evening, man. What's happening?
Not much, Adrian. Thanks for taking my call. And I just want to give my thoughts on the game. I haven't been as involved this year with UTEP basketball as previous years. But this was my chance to get back into it, and just as conference play started. And so I don't want to get into the details about players, but basically what tonight reminded me of was that year that Floyd resigned and Phil Johnson was coaching, and they were losing every game by 30. It felt like it, at least. And I remember I came to that Aggies game that year, and it looked like we didn't even belong on the same court with them. And that's what tonight looked like. And you know what? I wouldn't have been so mad if we weren't giving them such easy shots. And I thought we cut it to 13 by half, 15. Maybe we can make a run at halftime. Golding will get the guys going. But the easy shots just never stopped. And it was just that's evident of coaching, is when you can't minimize guys wide open underneath the basket. I mean, that's the easiest shot in basketball, the closest guy to the basket, and you're leaving guys wide open. And I think a guy next to me had made the comment, he's been coming all year, and it's been about half full, and maybe the players weren't used to this. They were a little tight, a little nervous, but already the jitters is gone. Second half, you got to play looser and get back to playing basketball. I mean, they couldn't make free throws, wide open threes, and they were getting their lunch eating down low, so I don't see much changing if we play the team over there. Honestly, they just look like a way better team, a more polished team, and a more gifted offensive team. I didn't feel like we had too much talent on the offensive side of the ball, which has kind of been pretty evident with these last 2-3 Golding years. With that being said, you guys are absolutely right. This means nothing in the grand scheme of things. But it does for attendance, which is what I always like to worry about because, it feeds all of athletics. And I felt like this was a big audition for, to get the casual involved. There was a lot of casual fans, first-time fans there, and they lose by almost 30. I can't remember the last time they lost that bad. So they had an opportunity to set the rest of the season off, and they failed miserably. So I know they'll bounce back and be ready for tournament, but they did blow a big chance tonight.
They really did, Rob. Hey, I appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in. There's a lot of things to take away from that one. The first thing I'll say is the last, New Mexico State game that you were referring to, that 2017-2018 season with Phil Johnson as the coach. That year, they lost 80-60. It was a 20-point loss for the Miners in that one. So, to your point, yeah, it has happened before. Doesn't make it feel any better. And the fact that, the Miners in this rivalry series, for whatever reason, they're just, they struggle. They don't win, and even at home they struggle sometimes as well. Sal, what's worse to you for you? Is it 18 of the last 22 games for New Mexico State, or is it the fact that Houghton is 16-6 over Golding?
It's the New Mexico State record, because it was happening before both of those guys were even there. You know what I mean? That I don't know if it's a byproduct of it or not, but it's a continuation of the trend, so to speak. UTEP has not been solid against New Mexico State at all these last 10 years or so, whatever the case is. They own the Miners this last decade, and not just in basketball either. We can even stretch it over out to football and in some other sports. But man, it's been a tough go against those Aggies. And who's the one who's going to the Mountain West, right? Play like it, guys. Come on.
Oh, man. People were saying that all over. I hear you on that completely. And Rob's right. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things for the Conference USA tournament or anything like that, but it does mean things for the casual fan. It definitely means something for the fan base and for attendance for the rest of the season. So let's keep it moving. Chuco is next up with us, 915-505-6009. We are full phone lines. If you're trying to weigh in, be patient with us. We'll get to you in just a little bit. 915-505-6009. Chuco is next up with us. Chuco, good evening, man. What's happening?
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm the guy who sees the glass half full. It is one game. It's the third game of conference, so we've still got a ways to go. But what does bother me is that, here I am advocating for people to go to games, fill it up, and when we try, or when we accomplish it, I should say, we lay an egg. And tonight was, wow. It was surreal, man. I was like, what the hell? What kind of dream am I in? Because we had a grand chance of getting that casual audience to, hey, hop on board, man. This is a team that's for real. But boy, they just didn't show up tonight.
They didn't, Chuco. Any other thoughts before we let you go, man?
Well, again, this is one of those where, listen, we can either come, learn from it, or we can lose control, and I hope it's not that one.
All right, Chuco, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for weighing in on the program. Let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. Disappointed fan base here tonight after a big loss. It's understandable. It's a 85-57 win for the Aggies in this one, a 28-point loss for the Miners at home. Let's talk about it. MinerTalk continues, 915-505-6009. We just freed up a phone line. We've got two calls to get to. We're going to get here to Tom and Adrian in Central in just a second. But before we do that, I do want to mention that MinerTalk is brought to you by Jack in the Box. They've got 15 locations open in El Paso. They are open 365, 24/7, by the way, and it's the perfect spot to go before and after every game. We also have our Hot Hand Award that we'll bring you here later on MinerTalk. That's presented by Wind Supply El Paso. Big shout out to the great team at Wind Supply El Paso. They had actually a great turnout tonight out at the Haskins Center. Bought a bunch of tickets and showed their Miner pride out there tonight, and they were really enjoying themselves tonight in the Battle of I-10. But it was a tough one tonight. If you're a UTEP fan, the Aggies destroying the Miners at home the way that they did, 85-57. Along with George, Zay, Alberto, and Sal, I'm Adrian. We're continuing here on Inspo Lens Live, wherever you watch on YouTube, on Twitter, and X, and we'll have this archived live as well for those who are watching us right now. We appreciate them. Let's go to Tom, who's joining us next, 915-505-6009. Tom, you're back with us. Welcome aboard. Go on ahead, man. Give us your thoughts.
Great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, tough loss tonight. I mean, I sat there, had good seats, and, was disappointed. But what comes to mind is, and doesn't add up to me, is I looked at the conference standings, and I think Louisville is at the top of their conference right now. So
yes.
we go into Louisville and we lose by 3. So this team is capable of playing with teams of that kind of caliber. NMSU is definitely a better team. They were so balanced. Their guards were good. Their forwards, this foreign player they had, I forget how to pronounce his name.
Filipovic.
Great game. He had a great spin move they weren't even ready for. And he was tenacious, man. He went after the glass. So, I'm not going to armchair quarterback, Coach Golding's team. They still accomplished a lot so far this season. And quite frankly, this is going to be the test of their character right now. How are they going to bounce back? I mean, the team's got a lot of talent, but they finally ran it up to against the team that had as much quickness as they did, and that was our asset against the last 5 or 6 teams. And that got neutralized right there. And then, of course, the fact that we don't position ourselves very well to rebound. And the one thing about the way we could do cover defense is at least players scattered all over the floor. I'm not a big fan of that. I think you play man-to-man, you hold on to your player, and if you have a guy that's really good, like a Michael Jordan, somebody's got to jump over and double team, and that's about as best you can do. You can't be flying all around, because you always leave a three-point shooter open, and so all of these things were exposed tonight, but we still have a very talented team. But with these guys, and I hope they're listening to the fans, I hope they're taking their lumps tonight and saying, you know what, they just need to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, and they need to pound the boards. I mean, our big guys were not active at all, So that's all I'm going to say. Go Miners. We're still in the upper part of the conference, and sometimes these things happen. You got to bounce back.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you so much for weighing in on the program. 915-505-6009 as we continue. Good stuff there by Tom. I'll mention this right here. As far as the bigs go, Kevin Kalu with 2 rebounds tonight. That's it. Derek Hamilton, 0, and then Elijah Jones with 1. So there are your bigs right there as far as the rebound margin goes. You talked about this with me, George, as far as the rebound margin just being a real tough thing for the Miners trying to get right.
Yeah, so combined between Kalu, Derek Hamilton, right, and Elijah Jones, what is that?
That's 3. That's 3
rebounds, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's terrible. I mean, at some point, they have to answer for that. And I think we talked about it when I walked into the studio with Alberto and Sal, heads on the chopping block. But these guys are accountable at some point. They're the bigs. They have no energy as anybody, as it's been said by the callers so far. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's got to get better. Yeah. I think overall, though, existentially, what's going on with UTEP and NMSU? I mean, NMSU, with all the scandals and the shenanigans that they have survived, UTEP hasn't had any of that and still can't find a way to be on that same level with them, at least on the court.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but last year, this is also a UTEP basketball team that beat New Mexico State at home, and this is also a football program that recently beat the Aggies. So I don't think it's an athletic department issue. I think it's more of a weekend issue. Women's basketball goes on the road, loses in Las Cruces, and then you saw the men get dominated the way that they did tonight. So Matthew Castro chimes in on the program at 600 ESPN El Paso. Can we say goodbye to crowds like this for the rest of the year? Another instance when the city shows up for UTEP athletics and they choke. Why do I get so invested? 4,000 max fans for the rest of the year. Aaron Peterson on the program said, fans showed up, Miners didn't. Hashtag MinerTalk. This is coming from JK on Twitter. I waited all week to watch UTEP men's basketball lose by 28 points at home in front of a sold-out crowd. They'll be lucky to get 3,000 fans in the Dawn for the rest of the season. What a disappointment. Hopefully the rest of Conference USA doesn't have them figured out. Same old UTEP. Sad UTEP fan. I never want to hear about bad attendance again on the show. Once again, UTEP blows it when it matters. I really feel bad for the people who spent their hard-earned money to see this bleep show. I am truly embarrassed to see or say I am a UTEP fan right now. Joe Rod at JRod in the 915 tweets into the program. Let's play a game on MinerTalk tonight. What question would you have for head coach Joe Golding if you were in the postgame presser? I'll go first. At what point did you know tonight was a lost cause? This is coming in from Aaron Peterson again. Breaking: Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez rescinds UTEP offer to join the league. They extend the offer to New Mexico State. Just a joke, but she has to be considering it after tonight. This is coming in from Poncho. Coach Joe Golding needs to issue a public apology for not having the team ready. He wanted a big crowd and got it. El Paso delivered, and he failed. Man, a lot of brutal comments coming in on the program, but you get it. It's an emotional fan base after a tough loss tonight. Steve checked in on the program. The Steve Kaplowitz, by the way. We said it all week on 600 ESPN El Paso. Tonight's sold-out crowd means nothing for UTEP's postseason chances, but everything as far as home attendance and revenue for the rest of the season. What a disappointment. I agree. Let's go back to the phone lines right now. This is my tocayo, Adrian in Central, 915-505-6009. Adrian, I appreciate you weighing in on the program. Great to hear from you, man. What's going on?
What's up, tocayo? How you doing, man?
We're doing well, man. Great to hear from you. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm gonna look at the glass half full a little bit here. I hadn't been to a UTEP game in a long time, tocayo, and you and I went back and forth earlier today, and I was sitting up on the last row and taking in that game and enjoying it. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna look at this way. UTEP hangs their hat on defense, tocayo. And when it comes down to game planning, when you have an opposing team with 9 seniors on a team, that becomes a much easier proposition for the opposing team when you have players with that level of experience, tocayo. You are not going to have mistakes that other younger players will make, and in saying that, what I'm saying is, look, they came up against a team that was prepared for them, and you don't have to game plan against a team that has a big scorer or anybody else that's going to take over the game, because UTEP doesn't have one. And so for me, defense wins championships, like they say. But at the same time, there's no other team in America that has more information on UTEP than MSU. And so I'm going to look at the glass half full. That doesn't mean I'm going to be at a bunch of games for the rest of the season, because they're not cheap. But I will tell you, that is, I think, what was the difference in the game today, that you had an experienced team playing against a UTEP team that hangs their hat on defense, and the defense didn't, defense travels, but defense didn't even play at home today.
No, yeah, it's true. And Tokai, I appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in. It's a good analysis. I feel like for the Miners tonight, defensively, they weren't themselves. They really just weren't. It just wasn't the same tenacious UTEP defense that made Sam Houston crumble, made La Tech, the defending CUSA champions, worried in that game. It just wasn't the same defense that was out there last week. And credit to New Mexico State. They hit shots too. It wasn't Christian Cook, who came off a really scorching hot week last week with 12 points. It was other guys on their team. Even, Bostic, who had 12 points. I thought those 12 points were vital for New Mexico State in this one. And I also like Jackson's performance. He had 18 on 7 of 7 shooting. He was just getting all the little, the mid-range buckets down low, and, actually hitting some from the elbow even. He also chipped in with 5 assists. So, yeah, in this one, I got to give New Mexico State some credit. I thought they played a really solid, they had a great game plan. They had a really solid game plan, and they showed up at the Don Haskins Center tonight, and the Miners just simply didn't. New Mexico State defeats UTEP 85-57. Let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. We'll get all our thoughts continuing here on the program. We got a couple tweets to get back to. 915 Sun City Caper. They want out money for Mountain West transition, but they put this disappointment on tonight. UTEP did this to themselves like always. Travis Allen Fortune tweets into the program, that was the most humiliating loss in the post-Haskins era. Hashtag MinerTalk. Ugh, man. Back to the phones. It's Sidelines who's joining us next on the program. Sidelines, my man. We were right next to each other throughout the whole game, and it just looked like a letdown all the way through. Just your thoughts post-game from this one. The Miners lose by 28 against their rivals, New Mexico State.
Hey, Adrian. Yeah, I mean, it was a good old-fashioned butt whooping, man. That's all I'm going to say, man. NMSU had four players in double figures in the point totals, man. Like, that is not the Joe Golding defense we've seen, and you're just going to have to bounce back from this, man. This is going to be a tough one to bounce back from just because you sold out the Haskins Center, and then you got to go back on the road to Lynchburg and play a conference title favorite in Liberty. Oh, man, this was a bad loss, very bad loss. I think I'm ready to call this the worst loss in the Joe Golding era, honestly.
Yeah.
I think I'll kind of ride by that. This is worse than the Utah Valley loss. Just because, Utah Valley was the first game of the year, you're kind of almost predicted to lose that game just because not everything's ready, You're still raw, you're still learning the game plans and whatnot, but losing to NMSU by almost 30 at home, man, that's pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, I hear you, Sidelines. As far as Liberty goes and then FIU, do they split next week? I mean, what's your prediction for the Miners going into next week?
Glass half full. I'm going to try to be the man of reason. I think they win both of those games because Coach Golding mentioned in the press conference, and he was kind of right. They get their butts whooped by Utah Valley, they go on a string of a few wins. They get their butts whooped by San Jose State and Vegas, they go on a 7-game win streak and such, So I'm going to ride that hot hand. I'm going to ride what he said about his team in the postgame. So I think they'll go 2-0 down the stretch.
Okay, I got you down for it. I appreciate it, Sidelines. Thanks for weighing in on the program as always, man. Check them out on Twitter and X. It's SSN_UTEP. That's Sidelines, our pal here on the program as we continue. Zay, we were raising our eyebrows there. He picks back-to-back wins against Liberty and FIU. Wow. And the light just went on as you said that. So that was crazy. It was like a light bulb just went off. But your thoughts and your reactions there, and we'll get Sal's thoughts on that one. Sweep next week. That's a bold claim.
That is a bold claim, and I mean, for that to happen, wow, I mean, UTEP needs to do some real soul searching, and it needs to happen quickly because you just lost by 28 points at home to your rivals in front of a sold out crowd. Now, I'm not gonna lie, if I was on that UTEP team, man, I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not strong enough for that to just next week go on a hot little run and take down probably the conference favorite at this point in Liberty. So, yeah, I think they can steal one game. Maybe they beat Liberty, but I don't think they win both, right? I don't think they win both.
Sal, Liberty tonight lost on the road to La Tech, 79-74, a close game, but before that, they beat Sam Houston State on the road, 76-68. That's an impressive road win for the Flames, and we know how difficult it is just to win on the road, period.
Yeah, Liberty's going to be a big dog in Conference USA, and no pun intended. I know they played the big dogs tonight, right? The Bulldogs of Louisiana Tech, but that's probably a top 4 Conference USA matchup. And as a matter of fact, there's going to be some fringe top 4 teams. I think we could just say the top 6, top 5 or top 6 would probably be some real quality teams. Of course, Louisiana Tech being one of them. But Liberty had the lead at the half, man, 34-27, and they were in control for a good part. Louisiana Tech woke up. Newman was incredible, 27 points and 8 assists. So makes you interested in what that next matchup against the Miners is going to be like in Ruston. But, man, it's not going to be as easy as people think. And I'll say this about Florida International. Man, they are fighting out there like, like a team who's really trying to win the game. So I've been seeing so much Conference USA basketball these last couple of weeks. And a lot of these teams remind me, in a way, of UTEP. And what I mean by that is there's this good stretch of about 5 or 6 minutes where when you watch them, they can beat anybody. I'm saying that about Jacksonville State, who beat Western Kentucky on Thursday. And I told you this as well, Adrian. If Jacksonville State plays like they played against Western Kentucky for 35 minutes, they're going to win every single game. If Western Kentucky plays like they're down 12 and there's 3 minutes left, they're going to win every game. I hope that makes sense, but it's not going to be easy, guys. UTEP, a big fish in a small pond. Liberty, a big fish in a small pond. They're going to meet up. That's going to be a lot tougher than people think.
Yeah, I think what you're illustrating is the parity that's shown across Conference USA right now. And you know what we're seeing right now is home teams are still winning a majority of these games. Home teams are 13-5 right now as it stands in Conference USA. So New Mexico State defeats UTEP. Let's reset a bit right here. New Mexico State defeats UTEP here 85-57. Let's do this. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. When we come back, it's Jacob who's joining us next. 915-505-6009 as Miner Talk continues.
From hometown to national. Sports spoken here. 600 ESPN El Paso is KROT El Paso, a Town Square media station.
For that one, on a bit overdue for that one here, but we continue, presented by Jack in the Box. Let's go to the phones, and it is Jacob who's joining us next on the program. New Mexico State defeats UTEP 85-57. Jacob, good evening, man. What's going on? What did you think of this game?
Hey, Adrian, I'm 13. I've been a lifelong UTEP fan, and today was just like a really embarrassing loss in front of a sold-out crowd. I believe they just came out flat. We need some guys to just step up, and it was just a terrible performance overall. But I believe in this team that they'll bounce back from this loss because I've seen them bounce back. Like that Louisville, we should have won. They bounced back really well, winning on a win streak. So I think they'll bounce back against Liberty.
Wow, great call, Jacob. I appreciate it, man. Promise me this, Jacob. You're going to call us back here on Miner Talk, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, appreciate it, Jacob. Great analysis there by Jacob, the 13-year-old who's calling us here on the program. I love that. Very knowledgeable for the age. I love the knowledge that he brought there. Sal, he knew exactly what UTEP needed to do.
My favorite thing he said is, I've been following UTEP my whole life. I feel you, man. Welcome to the club. No, that's awesome, man. Keep on doing it. Trust me, you're going to have a lot of fun.
13 years old means that he's never seen a UTEP NCAA tournament appearance. So, all right. Well, Jacob, maybe it'll happen soon enough. Who knows? 915-505-6009 as we continue. Next up with us here on the program, it is Jesse who's joining us next. Jesse, good evening. What's going on?
Man, how you guys doing?
Jesse, we're hanging in. Give us your thoughts on this one. What's going on?
That was a terrible freaking loss. I don't know how we lost, but at least we sold out to Don Haskins. It hasn't been that, since like 9 years?
9 years.
9 years since 1966. Well, to celebrate the 1966 celebration.
Correct.
But my suggestion, if they want to sell out the Don, why don't they give out discounts to students that are in school, show that you are on the AB honor roll, and show that you're an athlete. And they could go to middle school, from middle school to high school, and then they sell out the Don. Because if we don't sell out the Don today, after this loss, people ain't going to want to go.
Okay, any other thoughts?
I can't say.
All right, man. Well, good stuff. I appreciate the phone call. Thanks for weighing in. Let's keep it moving. I'll say this: as far as your idea on promotions and stuff like that, not a bad idea whatsoever. I'm totally behind that there, Jesse. I'll say this: the really cool news I heard from today, UTEP I heard like 1,000 local high school basketball players and 26 local high school basketball programs attended tonight's game. I believe there was a way that they were able to get tickets. I don't know if they even had to pay for these tickets, but it's great news that all these high school basketball players got a chance to go to the game. And as far as students go, students get free tickets. I know tonight they had limited tickets for student attendance, but typically every game students get free tickets. All they have to do is use their student ID. And I'm talking about UTEP students. So you were talking more about middle school students here in the future. I like your idea on that for sure. I mean, to reach out to local area students and have them join some of these games, I think that will definitely help attendance, in in the grand scheme of things. But I appreciate the phone call, Jesse. Thanks for weighing in on the show. It sounded like he was trying to come up with some ideas for UTEP to try to continue and get some more, some more fans here moving forward. But we got Brian, who's going to be joining us next. Then we got Milkman, and then I think we've got George, who's going to be joining us after that. Let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. A very busy edition of Miner Talk here on the show. I get it. A very emotional Miner Talk by some of our callers here as well. Brian, good evening, man. What's going on?
Well, the lights were too bright for those UTEP Miners since they got blown out by those Aggies. But, I've been thinking about this. Is this really going to be Joe Golding's last year at UTEP? Because I was talking to my UTEP group chat about this, about how this may be Golding's last season as we transition into Mountain West in a few years from now. And that left me thinking, what else is this team going to do to surprise us? Like what Sidelines mentioned, could we go on that streak? Or could it end up being worse? I'm not sure what it'll be, but this team really needs to get its act together because we're probably not going to see a sold-out Dawn for a long time now. And this was our one shot, and we didn't use it properly.
That's true. It's true, Brian. I appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in. I'd say as far as the Golding comments go for one more year, way too early to say that. Whether it's, getting hired elsewhere or whatever, I think it's way too early to say that. So I would just say as far as Golding goes, you just, you continue for the rest of the season. And then after the season, we start to look at other things like that. This is coming in from Atha99 on Twitter and X. So if they got confident tonight, as Golding said, then what about practice for the week? My God, Golding needs to go. Like all UTEP teams, they have the crowd and they disappoint. And let's be honest, out of the 12 wins, 3 or 4 are actually legit. King Eric, 17. Well, that was embarrassing. I hope Golding remembers all those Aggie fans celebrating on their home court and uses that when they go to Cruces later on in the year. I also had a strange gut feeling that this would happen. Herman Flores, complete choke job. Lights were too bright and they couldn't handle it. This is coming in from our pal Tristan Pence. Not much good to say about the game. Hooten did a magnificent job preparing New Mexico State for this game, and Coach Golding did not. UTEP's success is predicated on the team's energy, and for whatever reason, it wasn't there. Heb and Terrell both gave good efforts. Tonight's game is just one of 18, and all that matters is how the team is playing in March. Still, these big stage games when the Miner fans show up in big numbers have to be won by UTEP. What happened tonight was embarrassing and unacceptable. Hashtag Miner Talk. This is coming in from XMod V3. So Golding got the UTEP job because the coach got a fluke win over Texas. Honestly, Golding is not the right fit at UTEP. Man, a lot of
come on,
a lot of
man.
big picture like Golding shots tonight, Sal.
What I wouldn't call it a fluke. That was extreme defense, and UTEP history is modeled after what? Defense. I mean, the guy got hired because of his defense. When's the last UTEP coach to win a tournament game, by the way?
Yeah, Barbie.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's so true, Sal.
He didn't even win it.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, that's actually true. The Haskins is the last one. Good point.
So, yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
It's a good point, Sal. I'll say this, as far as fluke wins or anything like that goes, somebody's questioning the quality of wins earlier in the year. Well, conversely, what are you going to say? When they're losing these games, oh, you're losing to this team. It goes both ways. And by the way, as far as his overall record at UTEP over the last 4 seasons, Joe Golding 64-52, so above 500 here at UTEP over the 4 seasons he's been here, and this season off to the best start in his career here at UTEP at 12-4 overall. So let's keep it moving. 915-505-6009. Milkman is next up with us. Milkman, what's going on? How are you?
I'm not doing great. I can tell you. I don't know. I had a lot of scenarios in my head of how tonight would go, right? And some of them, were the Aggies might pull out a win. I can tell you I did not have losing like that in any one of my scenarios. Like, there was absolutely no way. I could not even fathom it in front of a sold-out crowd. Guys, I'm almost speechless about this. I don't even know what to say. Like, how do you lay an egg like that? I'm going to tell you this. I said a lot of stuff to the fans, earlier on at some of the other MinerTalk, that I've called in. I'm not going to say anything else the rest of the year because guess what? They all came out. The city of El Paso sold out the Don Haskins Center, and that is what they were subjected to. I mean, it's one thing to lose. I wouldn't have faulted them if they lost, but, I mean, come on. Can you tell me, is there a stat? I didn't even hear all the final stats, but surely there can't be one worse than rebounding. Rebounding just about made me throw up tonight. Like, I could not fathom how they could, like, was this the first game of the year? This was not the team that I watched play the rest of this season. I don't even, I'm telling my son, who he's seen some of the games, but I'm explaining, like, I don't know what to tell you, son. Like, this is not what I was watching before. The rebounding was, I have no words. I'm struggling to, just kind of keep it on the,
Milkman, I'm just going to cut you off real quick and say I've never heard you more dumbfounded in a call on MinerTalk. And I'd say you're probably one of the day one listeners here on MinerTalk with us. I've never heard you this confused in a post-game call talking UTEP basketball or anything UTEP.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it is, like I said, there was not a chance in my mind that I thought they would embarrass us like that. I mean, and that is flat out what this sold-out crowd got was an embarrassment. We got embarrassed. We only had a handful of Aggie fans there, and they started chanting like good. They deserved it. I mean, they deserved it. In the first half, I was like, you know what, we're beating ourselves. And I was like, you know what, we're going to pull this out in the second half, even though we got a long hill to climb. We're beating ourselves. In the second half, it was clear they were beating the snot out of us. I mean, it's a problem when there was no heart. There was no, I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. There was no, I wasn't watching the same team that I had watched. I mean, I got nothing, guys. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
I hear you, man. And Milkman, the questions that you have and the frustrations that you have, I think were a lot that fans had. And Sal, I'll ask you this. Do you feel like the Miners quit at any point in this game? Like, did you feel like they lacked some fight and toughness in the second half or maybe even in the first half where things were starting to go sideways for them?
I'll put it like this. I don't think we saw the effort that we normally see. Their foot wasn't all the way on the pedal, but it wasn't completely off. So in those instances, that's what I'll say. But at the end of the day, New Mexico State just had more. They were quicker. They were tougher. They were in spots first. They were steps ahead, literally and figuratively. And UTEP is not only having New Mexico State spank them, but they're making mistakes on their end too. I mean, that wide open transition bucket miss by Otis Frazier, hate to say it, man, but that helps set the tone for New Mexico State from here on out. They're thinking, we don't even got to do anything. These guys are going to screw it up on their end. The lights were just too bright today, man. That's really all it is. New Mexico State, a team that's finding their form, and this is probably the best they've been all year. And they kick conference playoff right, and not only that, not only do they beat their rival who's who they go back in time with, but they not only did they own this game, but they have first place now. This was a first place game. This had a Conference USA tournament game type of feel early on, leading up to it, and UTEP just completely fell flat. So I hate to say it, man, but the people are right. People want, they urge fans to go out there and support these UTEP athletic programs. We can go all over the place, and I mean, they're just not coming through when it matters. That's the reality of it, and it's sad.
Yeah, I would say just to piggyback off of those comments right there, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Zay, and anybody else who wants to chime in on this one right here. But this came in from Julian, at Jules Z. The Otis Frazier missed dunk was reminiscent of the drop Tyron Smith pass against North Texas. Are we cursed? Hashtag MinerTalk.
I mean, it's reminiscent of that. The Kelly Akari one against Jacksonville State on the road where he had an open touch. It wasn't open, but it's ruled a touchdown on the field, and then it goes to review. Wow. Incomplete. UTEP loses that game to go 3-9. I mean, I guess that happening, it was just an omen. Like, everybody should have seen that and just left. Like, all right, we already know exactly how this game. I mean, Otis Frazier was knocking down windmills in the pregame. He was getting, like, his head above the rim. And as soon as he has a wide open dunk in the game, he misses. Oh man, like
that's your senior. That's the leader of the team,
that's the
right?
Star. And then I feel like, I mean, that was a sign, right? That's exactly how this game went for UTEP.
Man,
exactly.
It was tough. 915-505-6009. By the way, we just freed up a phone line. George and the mayor are joining us after I talk a little bit more about this. But in the first half, the largest lead the Aggies had was 16 points, Alberto. And I felt like in that point, there was still a puncher's chance. The Miners were still in this game somehow. The second half, what really set the Aggies over the top, they went on a 17-3 run over 5 minutes. And that was already when the Aggies had a 12-point lead. That was when things became insurmountable for the Miners. They could not come back after that 17-3 run, and it was stifling by the Aggies.
Yeah, it's definitely stifling, and I think that, it's deflating. I think that great teams go on runs, especially late, and we had seen the Miners coming into this one go on several runs in different games that they've played, and they'd make you feel real good about how they can play. But when you play poorly in the first, and then you come out and you play even worse in the second, it's gonna be a difficult outing. And I think that there's nothing to do but grow from here, like everyone has said, and yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, as far as how they bounce back and respond from it. George is next with us, now in 505-505-6009. George, good evening. What's going on, man?
What's up, bro? I mean, I'm here at Whataburger, and this burger tasted so horrible. I think it's the horrible taste of loss, especially at home. Defend the Don. Are you kidding me? Going here at home with a sold-out crowd, and you come out flat-footed, your conference rival comes in and just puts a whooping on you. I mean, there is no explanation. I understand Milk Can's frustration, everybody's frustration. Everybody wants Golding's head. But honestly, it's an anomaly. That's all I can think about is this home loss. The lights were just too bright for the Miners, and I just think they were too overconfident, and they thought that just because they had the fan behind them, that was magically going to make them win the game. And you have to give effort. You have to hang your hat on what brought you home, and obviously nothing worked. Nothing worked. They were being out hustled. They were being out rebounded. They were out everything. I mean, this team was out from the get-go. It's a wake-up call. It has to be a wake-up call for this team, especially on the rebound end, because something needs to happen. Something needs to change, because Kalu regressed instead of getting better. He looked like the Kalu from last year, from his first season. And some of these other players just looked horrible. This is the worst loss UTEP has that I've ever seen. I mean, I look like a liar because my wife had not been to a game all season long, and this is nothing of a glimpse of the team that I've seen play with the tenacity and the heart. They were lacking all of that and some. I hope they're hearing, and I hope Golding's hearing too, and I hope they go back and look at film and coach up everything that they missed the whole game long. I don't know. It's just season tickets, and they go out like this. It's horrible.
It is. I mean, as far as just the letdown side of it, it is, George, and I get it. You're a reasonable fan to know and to understand that this doesn't mean anything, and when it comes to March and basketball and stuff like that. But like you started off the phone call, it's your rivals, and if you're bringing somebody for the first time all season long, it's all about those first impressions. Rob said it earlier. This was the time to win the casual fan over. This is the time where fans don't come to these games often, but they got all excited for this one. Like I mentioned earlier, over 1,000 high school area students and basketball players were in attendance for this matchup here tonight, and that's the first impression right there. If they haven't been to a UTEP basketball game in a while, that's the first impression that they've got on this team. I was talking to somebody who is a casual fan at halftime, and he was telling me, UTEP has no depth. That's their problem this year. I look at them like, man, I guess you haven't gone to any of the games, but I understand. If you're a casual fan, George, you're watching that one, and one of the takeaways you're going to have is UTEP doesn't have depth, they don't have offensive firepower, and maybe they come up clutch defensively sometimes, but the turnovers will hamper them too often.
Yeah, I mean, and it was the case today, right? 2 guys in double figures. It was your star who missed that ominous dunk early on, Otis Frazier, and then David Terrell Jr., who had his career high, right, in 17 points, 7 for 11 shooting. It seemed like he was the only one that wanted to play today. I think Baylor Hebb came in with some energy once the game was totally out of hand. But, it's funny. The casual fan, you talk about that. Yeah, we're never going to get them back this season. That's gone. You can't put up this kind of performance. To George's point on the call, this is the worst loss that I've seen as a person who used to watch games from the 90s. I mean, come to games in the 90s, and so it's a tough one to swallow for sure. And the casual fan is gone this year. Yeah,
as far as overall, again, I don't get too low on this one right here, despite the loss to a rival. I can't get that low after something like this. But I do understand from a fan perspective, from a hype perspective, you go all in on a game like this. You sell it out. It was trending toward a sellout as early as Tuesday in this week. It wasn't like it sold out today in a walk-up crowd. It's just disappointing. And it reminds you of some of the other ones that feel a little disappointing. The Southern Utah loss for football, the North Texas game they hype up and, they fall flat in that game right there. And there are other examples where Miner fans UTEP has a lot of hype around a game, and it feels like for whatever reason the program comes out and falls flat on their face in some of these. 915-505-6009. DeMayer is next up with us. DeMayer, welcome back to the program. What's going on, my man?
Adrian!
Hey, what's happening? Happy New Year. What's up, man?
Happy New Year to you. Today, for me, a day full of surprise.
Oh my gosh, you're telling me, man. I thought maybe UTEP could do the killing on their side, but I never, if you would have told me this outcome, Aggies killing UTEP by 28 on their home court, I would have said you're out of your mind.
Well, not only that, for me, I was at the women's game earlier at 2:00, and I saw the Aggies defeat the Miners there, and I thought I was walking out. And as I got on the road to El Paso, I was a little nervous because I was like, wait a minute, two Aggie wins over the Miners in the same day? I don't know about that, especially because I have seen the Miners play so much this season, and I've seen them play good basketball, in particular in the Don Haskins Invitational, where I saw them kind of be dominant, right? And I've seen their big men play pretty well. I've seen Kalu play pretty well. And I know the struggles that the Aggies have had against other bigs. And I was like, oh, man, if Kalu does what he can do, then the Aggies are going to struggle. Fortunately for the Aggies, it's like others, the other Miners fans have said, the Miners just didn't seem to show up. And Aggies took full advantage. And, Robert Carpenter with 17, to me, there were 17 quiet points because I've seen him do a lot more damage, and he could hit that three-pointer pretty darn well. And, as far as the attendance goes, okay, the Borderland people are going to get butthurt about what I'm about to say, but we're filled with the most fair-weather fans in the country.
Good
here
point.
in the Borderland.
It's a good point.
And now what's going to happen, right? The Miner fans are like they've already said, 3,000, 4,000 the rest of the year. Aggie fans probably, because here you got to think about it, right? The Aggies have won in 2 sold-out arenas against the Lobos and against the Miners. Those are the 2 games that matter the most for the Aggies. Now the Aggies are going to have, you would think they're going to have 6,000, 7,000 a game now. We'll see what happens. Fun night for the Aggie fans. It was really interesting to see. Me, I work a lot of games, but it's so different for me being a fan. And right now, just kind of really soaking it in, Adrian. It's just different for me, but pretty cool at the same time.
No, I totally understand, Eddie. I appreciate the phone call, man. Thanks for weighing in. And Sal, it's a really good point that Eddie brought up. Two great perspectives. Yeah. Number one, the point of, hey, it's not only this for New Mexico State and defeating UTEP in front of a sold-out crowd. They did it to New Mexico as well earlier in the year. So you could call this team maybe the silencers. They're just silencing the crowds.
Like that's good. I like it.
Okay.
NyQuil.
And then number two. Oh, there you go. Now, even better, Sal. Number two for New Mexico State to throw it back and Eddie just did it. He flipped it back on their fans. Like, hey, you go out and you watch two fan bases in your rivals sell out their crowds. Well, what about you in your own backyard in Las Cruces? Can you sell out the Pan Am Center? And for the Aggies, the way that they're playing 3-0 to start conference play, they deserve a great crowd here moving forward.
No, they definitely do, especially the way that they've been playing. They had a tough non-conference, a respectable non-conference, and they fared okay in it. But obviously the big one right there is the New Mexico Lobos, who's making some noise out in their conference, as they normally do out in the Mountain West. But that's huge, man. I mean, if you're going out there and you're beating your rivals, it's time for you guys to go out there and show them that respect. I mean, I'll put it this way. If Aggies fans can travel to El Paso for a game against the Miners, they can go to the Pan Am Center to see them, rack up some more wins in Conference USA. Why not, man? I can't believe I'm even saying this and endorsing, Aggie basketball. But no, man, that's an interesting point, right? We want people to go out to the UTEP games. They finally go, and if you're the Aggies who are actually winning bigger games on a consistent basis, you can't get those fans. That's tough, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's going to be interesting to see how their fan base reacts and responds to everything. Let's keep it moving. We just freed up a phone line, 915-505-6009. If you've been trying to get in on the program and you haven't been able to do so, give us a call right now. Now's the time to do it, 915-505-6009. Diego is going to be joining us here next, then we'll get to James. But before we do that, Aaron Peterson with a couple other tweets. Truth is, UTEP's defense never got going. We shot somewhere around 10 fewer shots than New Mexico State because we weren't getting turnovers and fast breaks. Did not look like the new and improved Miners we heard about. #MinerTalk. UTEP basketball set themselves back years. Thousands of El Paso high school athletes in attendance. Mountain West commissioner shows up and heard Scotty Walden had recruits in attendance. A lot of people went to their first and last game for a while, if not ever. I really believe we'll be lucky to see a sellout again in the next 5 years. It turned off a lot of El Pasoans tonight. This was the equivalent of UTEP football's loss to Southern Utah, and that is all coming in from Aaron Peterson. Wow. Alfonso Frias, if the football team lost at home against New Mexico State by 28 points, that would be considered a disaster. To lose by that margin in basketball in front of a packed house is a nuclear meltdown. Every time we have a chance to turn the corner, it ends in failure. Man, coming hot from Twitter and X right now from a lot of fans who are just disappointed. Back to the phones we go. It's Diego who's joining us next. 915-505-6009. Diego, thanks for weighing in on the program with us. What's going on?
What's up, man? It's just super embarrassing, man. Like, being a lifelong Miner fan, hearing that 13-year-old call in, like, get used to it, bro. I remember being 13 years old and asking my dad, like, what's going on? What's it going to take for the Miners to be good? And it's like, bro, I'm 24 years old now, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over. Like, it's been 10 years in the making. The Miners came out flat. It just looked like a team that was prepared versus a team that was unprepared. Like you said, it's a number one game it's a game for the number one seed in the conference, and it's looking like NMSU's the real deal, and UTEP's not ready for that yet. And I know you're saying that they need to be playing their best game in March, but, I mean, I don't think there was nothing tonight for Miner fans to be looking forward to cheer about. They came out flat, could not penetrate the paint, we're not fighting for rebounds. It looked like they were scared to be out there. I don't know if it's because that guy was 7 feet tall, but they looked scared out there. It looked like the big brother versus the little brother, and UTEP thought they were ready, but they're just not ready. They're not rebounding. It's not even like it was a close game. Like, I understand it was for the number one seed, but there's a big gap, and it was obvious. And I don't know what these guys want Miner fans to be looking forward to, because they just did not put out a good product tonight at all.
Good call, Diego. Any other thoughts to leave us with? New Mexico State downs UTEP 85-57. Any other thoughts you want to mention?
I'm just dumbfounded. I don't know how they expect a crowd to show up like that for the rest of the season. I just don't see it happening at all. We're excited. We're ready to go, pumped up, hyped. And it's just another letdown once again. It's the same old thing with it's the same old UTEP Miners.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I appreciate the phone call, Diego. Thanks for weighing in. Man, I'll say this, as far as fans being so out on whether the team, the coaching staff, whatever it is, bit of a overreaction by some. I understand from others feeling let down after all the hype. I get it. I'm not the doom and gloom. I'm somewhere in between. I understand the severity of the loss on this and what it does for attendance, but I also understand that March is when it really counts and when it really matters. Sal, I'll ask you. He talked about and referenced the 13-year-old Jacob who called in on the program and said, "Hey, look, you're in for a lifetime of misery." No, my first question to you is Samir Montes a Miner fan? Is he going to be a UTEP fan?
Oh, he's the biggest fan, man. He was probably watching it, at home, and but you know what though? That's not what the focus is on right now. Got to rest, Detroit Lions got the 1 seed. That's where his mind is at.
There you go.
How about this? Let's go ahead and flip it around, right? Jacob was saying, as a lifelong Miner fan, and we're joking about that. Well, how about this? My lifelong tenure as a Lions fan has been crazy. Last season was the best season ever up until this season, which was the best season ever in my lifetime, right? But got to endure the downs to get to the ups. Samir comes out the womb, and Lions are already making the playoffs. What's going on, man? He's the good luck charm. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this, Sal. What was your welcome to UTEP fandom moment? Like, where you were like, oh, this is what being a UTEP fan is like. I'll say when I was growing up and I actually rooted for UTEP, games like today, I'm so jaded. I don't have any emotional investment. Like, I'm not getting down on tonight whatsoever. But the one game I remember when my heart initially broke, 2004 football, they lose to Colorado in, I guess, whatever bowl game that was, 33-28. They had it in the bag. They had that game won. Yeah. And couldn't get it done. That was my welcome to UTEP fandom moment that just broke my heart as a kid when I was growing up rooting for the Miners.
I think for me, I'll stick with football as well. But the one that pains me the most, and that's because the Miners had it, and they had a chance to, I can't remember what their record was, but it was during Mike Price eras, and around then, you know what I mean? They're hovering like 5 to 7 wins, somewhere around there. They're usually on the 5 side, but it was a game against East Carolina. Chris Johnson came to the Sun Bowl, did his thing against the Miners. Miners have it in the bag, man. They completely have it in the bag. And they throw this Hail Mary, and the game goes to overtime, and East Carolina wins it against the Miners. But I had my binoculars, and I swear to this day, the same way people feel about Des Bryant, how it's a catch when it wasn't, I swear the ball hit the ground on that Hail Mary pass with the East Carolina and Miner game. I saw it in my binoculars, but this is way back then. There was no recording on them.
Oh, man. I'm looking at that right now. 45-42 overtime loss 2007 season when the Miners finished 4-8. By the way, way too talented for being 4-8 on that year.
What was the record at that point?
At that point, Sal, they were pretty good. They were 4-2 at that point.
There we go. Yeah, so
4-2.
That was kind of the downfall of the season. And if we'll be real, kind of the turning the corner in Mike Price's tenure. That game changed everything, man. I'm still heartbroken.
Wow. All right, we got a little sidetracked there. We might get some other thoughts as far as heartbreaks go here from our round table here. 915-505-6009. A lot of heartbreak to talk about if you're in these parts of town. James is next up with us, and then we'll go to David on the east side, and then we'll get one other call to get to as well. We got full phone lines, 915-505-6009. James, good evening, man. What's going on?
Oh, good evening. Tough game to sit through, and I tell you, it was just, and I thought this was one of the better behaved NMSU Aggie fan group that I've ever been around, but because, I guess they almost were just as awestruck as everybody else. But there was no passion from our players. We were outcoached, outplayed. Zero adjustments. I mean, we all kept saying, hey, what if he goes with like 2 bigs or 3 bigs or something? But, I mean, nothing. And I don't know. I mean, and yes, we're all seasoned Miner fans, and we grew up watching the 70s and the 80s. But you know what? I don't know. I mean, it's like everybody else. We just needed a format and a narrative to be able to vent. And thank you very much, guys, for allowing us to do that. But it's a tough show, but you're doing a good job. So thank you at least for allowing us to vent.
Hey, I appreciate it, James. Thanks for weighing in on the program, man.
Take care.
It's people like you guys who keep us doing this, so appreciate it, man. Thanks for weighing in on the program. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. We're going to get to David from the east side in just a bit, but then we got Hunter here who's going to join us next on the phone lines. We just freed up a phone line right now, so if you've been waiting to get in on the program, now's the time to do it. 915-505-6009. Hunter is next up with us. Hunter, my man, you have the floor. Go ahead.
What's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
Doing great, Hunter. How are you?
I don't know how you guys do it, man, but like the last caller said, man, thanks, because I know it can't be easy. I got to quote the late, great Dennis Green. They are who we thought they were. And that, but we're referring to ourselves, this time. Sometimes I hate being right. And I think, we talked yesterday. Sarkisian is who he is. He's a loser, and he showed that with Texas. I told you that almost exact score, didn't I?
Yes, I'll give you credit. You called both these things. It was crazy.
Did I not?
Don't call me anymore, Hunter.
Well, I hate being right, man, but it's Golding, for all his faults. I mean, and he's got some good too. I'm not calling for his head like a lot of these callers. I think you plug in any coach, and it's just we've been cursed for 32 years now. There's been a curse, and nobody can beat that. And that's in every sport. If you look at Ben Wallace at volleyball, he cursed again. He blew it in his biggest game of his career twice in a row. He blew it in a packed house in the conference championship here, and then he blew a 2-0 lead in the NCAA tournament. Like the Miners over the last 32 years cannot get over the hump, and there's nothing to even say about this game because I've been going to games since the 80s. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And I think it was the previous caller also, Golding says all the right things, even after the game, we're allowing too much penetration. We weren't moving the ball. Well, you're the coach and you're in the middle of a game. Maybe you should do something about it. Why are we sitting there watching them tear us apart on the right side of our defense and go with 8 or 9 layups in the first half and even more in the second half? Like, do something, but to just watch the train wreck happen and do nothing, inexcusable. But it's the people that can't believe it. Where have you been the last 30 years? Or did you not see the EB1.net Bowl, where they should have had that game against Colorado and everybody traveled over there? We had a huge Miner contingency, and only one that didn't know it was a fake punt was UTEP. They blow it. Miner Orangeville, Floyd's first game, blow it. UAB at home in a sold-out Sun Bowl with the quarterback talking trash and peeing on our field, blow it. Conference championship, sold out, blow it. So it's not a surprise, unfortunately, and it shouldn't be. It's what everybody should be accustomed to, and there was nothing out there today. Zero. I mean, the only bad thing I can see is if they don't recover from it. Something like this can demoralize a team, can have them questioning themselves, and it can linger. And the worst part about it is you guys say, it only matters in March. No, it doesn't. This season matters. Every game matters. And what you bring, New Mexico State will own them in Cruces, and heaven forbid they play in the conference tournament, because that is one team that they prepared. They know UTEP's weakness, and they attacked it from the very beginning. And that took the wind out of their sails. They had no chance because, and I was here's what I feel bad for. I was sitting next to a gentleman that's been going to the game since he's a class of 67 or 66. I'm sorry, Texas Western, and he has to ride an electric scooter from his car with a cane because he can't even walk up to the arena. So that guy is willing to go through all that to get to a game to watch a bunch of guys that were scared. And you could see that from the warm-ups. NMSU had a look in their eyes. They were getting after it, and UTEP was scared. That's inexcusable. But the only good thing I saw was that photographer from NMSU. My God, that was fantastic. But it made the whole game for me, really. But shouldn't be a surprise. My only problem is hopefully it doesn't linger, and hopefully they don't meet up with NMSU in the conference tournament. They'd have no chance.
I appreciate it, Hunter. Thanks for waiting on the phone. I'll say this, as far as the matchup comparison, it's a terrible matchup for UTEP, Sal. The one part that I hate about New Mexico State in terms of UTEP playing them in the future is the fact that they slow everything down. Their possessions, they really slow it down, and they force UTEP to not get into what they like to do defensively. UTEP loves to be pesky defensively. They like to get after it and turn people over, but I'll flip it to you, Zay. The defense just wasn't where it typically is, and maybe that's because it was a terrible matchup here for UTEP in this matchup when it was all said and done.
I want to agree there, but we saw what they did with something like that, or a team like that, who's Louisiana Tech. That's their bread and butter. They slow it down. Newman gets all these assists, but he's the quarterback of that offense. He completely went off tonight, by the way, and in La Tech's win over Liberty. But their styles aren't the exact same. But if we're just going to generalize it and say a team who likes to slow it down, take the air out of the ball, value the possession, and move the ball around, they got a taste of that the other night, and they were able to exert their physicality on Louisiana Tech. They just weren't as tough as the Aggies tonight. So I don't necessarily want to say it's the styles. They were just hungrier, man. That's what it came down to.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go. I agree with Adrian. I think that this is a horrible matchup for the Miners, and I think it's a horrible coaching matchup. I mean, Jason Hooten outcoached Coach Golding tonight. It was pretty obvious from the get-go, and what New Mexico State did offensively is they forced UTEP, like you said, they couldn't be pesky. It was one-on-one, right? It was David Terrell versus Christian Cook at the top of the key, and Christian Cook was cooking, man, right? Zowdy Jackson was cooking. Everybody was cooking UTEP one-on-one. UTEP couldn't get that help side defense. They couldn't blitz the screen. They couldn't get into their rhythm defensively. And that's such a weird thing to say because you never say that about a defense. You say that about, somebody's offense. Hey, they didn't let you get into your set, nothing like that. But for UTEP, their defense really is their offense. That's how they score most of the time, and New Mexico State did a great job of really not letting UTEP do that.
Uncharacteristic. I'll swing it to you, George. It felt just uncharacteristic all around for that defense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and back to the matchup point, I think that you guys make excellent points. NMSU loves to slow it down, grind it out, and then move the ball right, but they're also just so quick. They can answer everything that UTEP threw at them today. Every basket that UTEP made, NMSU answered, or they one-upped them. But yeah, defensively, they were just totally discombobulated. I think the Sal's point also, the lights were a little bit too bright, and NMSU wanted it more. But yeah, I mean, when you can't get in the rhythm, Zay said it best. It's UTEP's bread and butter. That's how they get their offense going. So, of course, your half-court offense is then just watching five guys hang around the three-point line, not even try to get into the lane. And we've seen that a lot this year from this team. And so it becomes a broken game, and then you get this kind of result.
Alberto?
I just think that Miners came out flat-footed. It's can't be overstated, and I think that I haven't heard this stated. 19 of 27 of shooting in the second half from NMSU, 70%. So,
wow.
I mean, yeah, nice. 70. You shoot 70% from the field in the second half, and then the other team is shooting 33. Miners shot 33% in the second half. I mean, yeah, that kind of just tells you the story of the game. Nothing else matters. I think, are the Miners a great team? Yeah, but they got punched in the mouth today. Like everyone said, you let yourself get too confident. You shoot poorly. Well, this is what's going to happen. A better team's going to come into your house and take your lunch. So we'll see what things go from here.
David from the east side of El Paso is joining us next now at 550-56009. David, good evening. What's going on?
How's it going?
David, we're hanging in. How are you?
Yeah. It was tough to see it. Just tough. real simple. I think the Miners were not mentally prepared. Mentally, because if you prepare your team mentally, that's half of it. That's half of it right there. The Aggies were sharper, faster, and they were getting their shots. And the Miners got scared, and Don Haskins used to do gimmick defenses. I know the Miners are going to go to cruises. Hey, okay, you get the best two of the Aggies. Okay, you go into a triangle and two. Try it. Can't hurt. There's different ways, and the Miners were just scared. But it doesn't say the Miners have to prove they're winners on the road. Okay, they're going on the road. I don't know how many games they're going on the road, but they got to win them. Okay, and real simple, Coach Golding did not do a damn thing as far as doing something different. And,
you didn't like the adjustments?
No adjustments. Dribble drive. Was it Cooks that was going in?
Yeah, it was. It was him who was driving down there. David, good job, man. I appreciate the phone call. Hear your frustrations completely. You got to keep it moving, man. So I appreciate you hanging with us and staying patient with us, joining us here on MinerTalk as we continue. Miners have 2 games on the road. It's Liberty first that they play on Thursday. That's a 7:00 tip-off. By the way, that one will be nationally televised on CBS Sports Network. Really cool right there. And then a noon tip-off on Saturday against Florida International next week. So Miners, earlier we had Sidelines UTEP say that he, predicted UTEP to sweep. I don't know if I necessarily see that. I will say this. After the Liberty FIU road trip for the Miners, they come back home the following week to close out the month of January. They've got Jacksonville State at home. They've got Kennesaw State at home. That's a Thursday, Saturday tilt. And then they go back on the road. It's Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. That's the tough road trip right there. That's the one that I'm circling on there that the Miners need to try to avoid to go 0-2 during that stretch. It'll be a tough one as we continue. 915-505-6009. This is coming in from Eddie Morelos off air. Tonight was the largest margin of victory on the road for New Mexico State in the rivalry against UTEP since 1937. Wow. Aggies won that game by 35 on January 15th, 1937. So there you go. Almost 100 years ago right there, Eddie Morelos. Appreciate that. Adam Young sharing that one. I heard that one from Voice of the Miners, John Teicher and Steve Yellen as well in the post-game broadcast. So happy that we got that one cleared up as far as the margin of victory goes for UTEP in that one. Let's keep the phones moving. The phones are just simply not stopping, and we're not going to stop with them. 915-505-6009. John from Colorado is going to join us in just a bit, but first, let's get to Scott from Albuquerque. He's going to join us next. We've got one phone line available, 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. Scott, good evening, man. What's going on?
Good evening, sir. As an Aggie fan, glad to see us win, but damn, I went to UTEP for my Masters, and it's a hard thing to see the Aggies beat us at home. But, Coach Golding did not deal with he did not properly have the scout for the Aggies, and it's kind of sad. Like, Hooten had a better scout, and then what can you do? They were both coaches in the Southland, so you'd think they would know each other's styles, so it's tough, but I'm looking forward to the Miners winning out and coming up to Las Cruces, and hopefully we'll have like a amazing game in Cruces.
Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully this one in Cruces is much better than a 28-point loss at the Don Haskins Center. I appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for weighing in. A Miner and Aggie split in their own house. So went to undergrad for New Mexico State and then went to graduate school at UTEP. I like it there, Scott. Appreciate the phone call. Appreciate your perspective as we keep things moving. 915-505-6009. Next up with us, it's John from Colorado who's joining us here on the program. 915-505-6009. If you've been waiting to get in on the program, now is the time to do it. We've got 2 phone lines that just opened up. 915-505-6009. John, good evening, man. Give us your thoughts on this one.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my phone call. So I live in southern Colorado. I grew up in El Paso, went to high school, moved away to college, and I just grew up loving UTEP and was around the Filiberto Rivera days, the Jason William days, going to the Dawn, and the atmosphere was just awesome. And just so I have all these core memories of that. And so when they start winning again, and you get all jazzed up, and then you watch them, and my daughters are watching them here, we're all fired up, and then for them just to lay an egg is just unbelievable.
Total letdown.
Yes, but I have a few different perspectives. Is number one, I don't think they weren't prepared. You have to understand, like they haven't played in front of a crowd like that at the Dawn. None of those guys have played like that.
None of them.
I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit. Let them get this kind of experience. You know, New Mexico State, and you guys have talked about it. New Mexico State played at Dayton, sellout. Beat the Lobos at the pit, sell out. Like, they have some big game, big crowd experience. Those Miners haven't yet. Let's pump the brakes. They play phenomenal defense. That defense is going to travel throughout Conference USA. I will say, I agree with some people that the offense, it's like they play such great defense, and offensively they just cannot buy a bucket at times. Just get back to the X's and O's on some offense, get the ball inside, try to get to the line. But that defense will travel, and they just got out-toughed. I like what Golding said after the game. They were out-toughed. You can't give up all those damn offensive rebounds in the first half. But I appreciate what you guys do. Go Miners. They're going to be fired up. We're going to be all right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks for weighing in on the program. 915-505-6009. Great phone call there by John. Really like that one a lot. So good stuff there, John. I appreciate you weighing in on the program as we continue. Want to continue to mention that we are live on Inspo Lens on Twitter and X. You can also check out Inspo Lens on YouTube. Check them out online, inspolens.com. Inspirational video stories on Inspo Lens. That's at Inspo Lens News on Twitter and X. That's where we're live right now. Chris chimes in with us via Inspo Lens. UTEP is in 9th place in defensive rating with a 96.4 rating and an offensive rating of 109.1 in 8th place in Conference USA via Fox Sports Stats out of 10 teams. NMSU is 7th offensively and 6th defensively in those same categories. Also said UTEP is in last place in rebounds with 27.5 rebounds per game. Kennesaw State is first with 39 rebounds a game. NMSU is right in the middle. They're 4th with 36 rebounds per game. Sal, this was one of those stats we were ready to write off, just saying, hey, UTEP's going to lose the rebound margin every single game. Just pencil that in. Tonight, it was something they could not overcome. The rebounds simply, or losing off the glass the way that they did, simply was too much to overcome.
Yeah, and what they usually do well, they didn't do well today. And you add on top of the fact that they're usually not going to out-rebound the other team. Today, that wasn't even in the plan at all. You could just scrap that out. But I promise you guys, just get it out of your head that they're going to out-rebound. That's not who they are. Well, they're going to lose games when they get out-rebounded. They're going to win games where they don't even get as many rebounds as the other team. You got to do your bread and butter. They didn't do that today.
This is Lucamotive Miner texting into the program. He said, defense is going to travel? It didn't even travel from the locker room. With all due respect, I disagree with John. That's coming in from Lucamotive Miner. Well, I'll just say this. This even goes back to some of our previous calls. the Miners on the road, that's where I'm going to be pulling out my magnifying glass and looking at this UTEP team to see what they really have on the road. I mean, you can win these games at home against Yale, and you can beat Seattle at home, and you can have wins against the likes of La Tech at home and Sam Houston State. Those are fine. And you know what? Somebody even called New Mexico State an anomaly. I could think maybe that could be the case, but I won't. I'll reserve judgment until I see this team on the road. Like I want to see them against Liberty, Zay. I'm already ready for that one to tip off after such a disgusting performance at home in a 28-point loss. How are they going to respond against a team in Liberty who right now, aside from New Mexico State, looks like the best team out of CUSA?
Yeah, Sidelines talked about it earlier, right? The Utah Valley loss. They were able to bounce back from that, go on a couple wins after the San Jose State loss, right? You guys get, what I'm trying to get here. UTEP has done really, really good after a loss. We'll see how that comes to now, right? When you lose by 28 points in front of a sold-out crowd against your rivals. Every time I say that, it gets worse. But, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that Liberty game is going to tell us a lot about this team and how they're going to, respond to a loss like this. And it's on the road. Once again, Liberty, they've come in already into Conference USA. They have one of the better environments, I'd like to say, in the conference. So it's not going to be an easy win. They went into Liberty last year, picked up I think it was their second road game of the year. So I'm excited. I really can't wait for that game because I want to see how this team responds. Will they, respond the way we want them to, or will they just kind of lay flat down their face?
To your point, Zay, last year Liberty beat UTEP at the Dawn, and then the Miners beat Liberty on the road. They beat them last year, by the way, 67-51. Curious to see if the Flames still have a bad taste in their mouth after that big loss to the Miners last year at home. So a couple other tweets to get to, then we'll go back to the phone lines. El Paso Visuals Deportivos. Ivan tweets into the program. UTEP loses by almost 30, and the guy who tries to play sports journalist says that he's riding the hot hand and picking them to sweep their next road trip against Liberty and FIU. Again, riding the hot hand. Way too many fanboys, talking heads, and no communications and backgrounds out here. Hashtag MinerTalk. And then Ivan to say, I believe this team is better than riding tonight and could win on the road, but to say, quote, riding the hot hand after losing tonight by 28, this is coming in from Ivan saying, no mames. So, Ivan already throwing shots to our pal Sidelines, and, that's unfair to our pal Sidelines because I'll tell you this, I know our pal Sidelines, SSN_UTEP, he is not a UTEP journalist. He's not he doesn't pretend to be a journalist. He doesn't pretend to be somebody who he's not. He's a true fan. And what he wanted to do by being a credentialed person this year was provide content for UTEP. And that's social media, man. So he posts these videos. He posts these all this content all over the place. And I think he does a great job. So for him to, just say something like riding the hot hand, I don't think he meant that. Don't get it twisted, man. Don't twist people's words when they just simply slip on the tongue. That's all I'll say right there for Sidelines, just to back him up a little bit right there. 915-505-6009. Our pal Ivan always with some stuff, funny stuff here on the program. And as you heard there from the ESPN music, that's because we're going way past our time here. So let's do this. Let's pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to MinerTalk, brought to you by Jack in the Box here on 600 ESPN El Paso.
Streaming worldwide through the 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app. 600 ESPN El Paso is KROD El Paso, a Town Square media station.
915-505-6009. That's our telephone number to get into the program. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and on X. That's Twitter and X here on the program as we continue. A couple other comments coming in on the app. This is coming in from Julian. 50-50 balls, rebound, field goal percentage, toughness, coaching, and everything else won by NMSU. Very, very tough loss for our program. This is coming in from Skin Rocks 35. What happened to adjusting and boxing out? UTEP has to get back to the basics and respond to the pressure of aggressive teams. How do they come back from this? Well, they're going to have to just wake up tomorrow and kind of get back to it, man, like nothing really happened, and get back to it and try to right the wrong on the road against Liberty. I guess that's the only way that they can kind of do it right now. Poncho checks in on the program, says UTEP men's basketball and head coach Joe Golding got embarrassed at home. Golding is not a good coach. UTEP does not have a great inside game, and he could not figure out how to stop the Aggies. This entire offseason this entire offense revolves around three-pointers. Jim Center needs to start looking for a new coach. Steve Kaplowitz, there were a lot of empty seats for the alleged sellout. Either UTEP or Ticketmaster or both are running some kind of scalping scheme. #MinerTalk. I don't know what to say about either of those. I'm just going to read them here on the program as we continue. Augustine, I just want to know what happened. Did UTEP players crumble under pressure? #MinerTalk. Too many people? Poor 13-year-old kid. That's what Augustine said. Oh, man. Brian chimes in. My friend and I's reaction says it best. Well, maybe this game can help the team wake up from the circus performance happened after Utah Valley and Louisville, and maybe now. But then again, all that matters is what happens in March. Am I right? Picks up #MinerTalk. Rudy chiming in on the program, hearing some crazy overreaction post-game conversations at a local restaurant about tonight's game. Everyone calm down. At Coach Joe Golding is still the man. #MinerTalk. I think people definitely can calm down a little bit. I think, get it out on MinerTalk. Let yourself vent on here on the program, and then turn the page next week, because this does not mean the sky's falling. For the casual fans, yeah, it is the sky is falling. So we'll keep it moving. This is coming in from Ruben Ramirez at Rutang. How can the fans give you a sellout and you get what you ask for? And just like during football, this is how you reward your fans. Expect 4,000 fans next game, maybe. #Miners blow it. We haven't seen that hashtag. That's pretty funny right there. Let's keep it moving. It's Ruben who's joining us next, 915-505-6009. Ruben, good evening. What's going on?
Hey, man, I've been a long-time fan. We used to go back and watch Deep Jackson, Kent Lockhart, all the old school guys in the 80s. And, this team is different, and I disagree with that other caller, that other guy that chimed in about being a three-point team. We're not a three-point shooting team. What we are is a transitional, fast-breaking, we like to steal the ball team. And once UTEP starts stealing the ball, once they start to get in transition game, and then they start to get their flow going, and all of a sudden we got alley-oops, we got dunks, and everybody gets up. And then on offense, we start to do the driving. But in this game, for some reason, our team just couldn't get those steals and just couldn't get that transition game going. The last time we saw that was against Utah Valley, where UTEP, I don't know, they must have thought we thought we were going to win real easy, and they showed up, and UTEP didn't even show up. And that was embarrassing. So now we don't show up for this game. We can't steal because NMSU, they're very fundamentally sound. We can't get any steals. All of a sudden, we're seeing UTEP walking down to get back on defense. And then Joe Golding went ahead and sat down a bunch of starters because they were walking down the court. They weren't even getting back on defense anymore. So there's something that happens where our guys just shut down, and they're done for the night. And it might be 2 minutes into the second half. And that's what happened tonight. And I don't know, since Utah Valley, it scared me because UTEP wasn't even there that night. And you remember that game. It was scary. Because that was like a Division II team, or they just became Division I. I don't even remember.
They're Division I. They're Division I.
And they spanked us. It was like 80-60 or something. And everyone said, well, that's the first game. Well, they shut off tonight the way they did against Utah Valley. And unfortunately, it was in front of Miss Nevada's, the Mountain West coordinator or whatever. How embarrassing.
Commissioner, yeah.
Yeah, so me and my brother just sat there, and it's like the crowd was real quiet. And, it's a shame to have a sellout crowd be quiet. And, of course, they're going. I had been touting to everybody, this is the team to watch, and it wasn't. So, but this is a transition team, fast break, take advantage of it. But there was no defense tonight. And it's a fun game when they get into it, but they didn't get into it tonight. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that. But
Yeah, I mean, I would say this. Look, like the fans showed up. They were so excited, Ruben, just to cheer on UTEP to get onto the court for warm-ups. Like, I don't remember. I think you have to look back to the early Tim Floyd days when they were starting to dunk in the warm-up lines for fans actually cheering in pre-game drills.
Yeah.
Like, they were all animated. The fans were all into it. But out of the get-go, I think fans started to get a little tense, just like the Miners. They saw how tense the Miners were playing. Fans started to get tense. First half was not loud at all. Second half, the fans are trying to get the team back into the game. But it was a 12-point game, then it was a 15-point game, and then out of nowhere, New Mexico State went on that 17-3 run and really never looked back after that.
Exactly. And then I lost my voice, and that's it. But I'll be back for the next game. I'm a sucker for punishment.
Okay, we'll see you out there, Ruben. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for weighing in on the program, and thanks for the comments tonight. 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number as we're starting to wind it down here on the program. Z Nelson on the program tweets into the program, one game, you got smoked to a rebuilding New Mexico State team. If you can't beat them now, which you haven't done much of that in a while, it's never going to happen. I'd say have fun in the Mountain West, but UC Davis is going to be super hard. Glad Gloria Navarez was there to see that beatdown at home. Man, this is coming in from Jeffrey Bernstein. Hopefully this will turn out to be either a blip on the season or just a bad matchup. Michael Nunez, whoa, New Mexico State has won 18 of the last 22? I lost track when that loser, Greg Heyer, was here for a year. This is coming in from the one at Flash Action 60. Being in from Michigan, losing to a rival in embarrassing fashion is unacceptable. Also said the attendance is going to take a major hit. This is coming in from Jeffrey Bernstein again. Tonight's loss can go one of two ways. Either the Miners will fall apart or they'll rebound and play stronger the rest of the way. It'll be fascinating to see what path they take. This is from Augustine. Is UTEP playing possum? Herman Flores, complete choke job talking about this loss here for the Miners. Let's keep it moving. We got another phone call to get to, 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X. If you've been trying to get on the program, give us a call right now. We've got some availability, 915-505-6009. Andrew is next up with us, and then we'll ping around the table with some more thoughts going into next week on the road. Andrew, good evening, man. What's happening?
Hey man, how's it going? Obviously, UTEP looked terrible tonight. I think I'm pretty glad Golding kind of took the blame because being there, he looked distraught, and I'm not gonna say too much about that, but yeah, I think that had a lot to do with this loss was coaching. And I will say though, I don't want to just call and be negative. I think there's a big silver lining that I'm not really hearing, but I'm kind of seeing, and I think Conference USA is kind of crazy this year. I don't really know if there's going to be a team that dominates. Liberty lost tonight, and I was expecting them to be the kind of lead the way. So it seems like everybody's going to drop a game in conference play at some point. Maybe this was our time to drop that one game. I'm sure going to be a couple more that we drop. NMSU is going to have their game that they dropped. They're going to lose to somebody, and it's probably going to be an upset. So I think that's a big silver lining, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this conference plays out. I think there's a lot to look forward in that regard.
Yeah, I think so too. I like the fact that you're bringing up just the parity. We talked about it earlier. We're seeing the parity right now. Conference USA favorites in La Tech just dropped 2 in their West Texas trip. So yeah, it's evident. There's times where you could just look at it and there's going to be parity across Conference USA. However, the flip side, you could have said, well, Miners started off 12-3 in this conference. Maybe this could have been a year where the Miners take a strong arm on Conference USA, and despite a lot of parity across the league, this could have been the year where the Miners take control and are atop the league. Sal, is there ever going to be a year where the Miners are top 1, 2, or 3 in this conference without, fans or anybody having to just give the excuse of, oh, don't worry, just wait for the tournament?
You know what? That's such a good point. I don't think that's going to come, and it's not even a problem if it doesn't come, because if you look around college basketball, some of the better teams in their conferences, they're going to drop 1, maybe 2 Could even be 3 games. That's just the way some of these conferences are now. Look at the A10. Look at the Big West. Look at the West Coast Conference. I guess Gonzaga's the exception, right? But to that point, right? Let's say, hey, you're running through your conference. Then what's going to be the talk? Well, you wanted Conference USA. It doesn't really mean much. What were they saying about the Aggies when they were still in the WAC, right? They're just beating up on these WAC teams. What did UTEP do to a WAC team when they visited them this year? You know what I mean? So it's just a completely different day and age. But no, man, they're not gonna run through a conference. They're gonna have some fights, man. They're not gonna win as good as they are. They're not gonna win every single game by 15 points. It could be ugly. They could win by 1 or 2. They could lose by 1 or 2. They could lose by 15 plus. It all depends on what team shows up. But no, don't expect undefeated seasons. Not even from UTEP, but from the best teams in college basketball itself.
Zay, the last time UTEP finished in the top 3 in Conference USA was the 2014-15 season. So been almost 10 years, actually 10 years exactly, since UTEP finished in the top 3 of Conference USA.
Yeah, they're going to have some work to do. You know, Conference USA is a gauntlet, as always. So I'll try and do some real journalism. You know, I know some people want to see me do some real journalism, or Sidelines. I think Sideline does some real journalism. So we'll do some real journalism, and we'll dig into all the great stats and see who's riding the hot hand at the end of the season.
Okay, I like it. Right now, as it stands, by the way, UTEP is third in the conference as it stands. So a lot of parity across the league from top to bottom. Middle Tennessee's 3-1, New Mexico State's 3-0, and those are the teams who are atop UTEP in the standings so far in Conference USA. By the way, I mentioned this earlier. Home teams are 13-5 in Conference USA, but here you go, Sal. I got a good one for you. I know you're the stats guy, like Ronnie likes to say. In the close game percentage, that's talking about games that are decided by less than 4 points or overtime. Only 1 of 18 games in Conference USA has been decided by less than 5 points. How about that?
Are you serious? Only 1 game decided by less than, what'd you say, 5?
Yes, only 1 game so far out of 18 league games in Conference USA has been decided by less than 5 points or has gone to overtime.
That's insane. That's hard to believe, because I've been watching some of these games and they're dogfights. I'll say this, that number might be just a little bit misleading. Is there like 6 points or something, or games decided in the final minute and a half? I would love that stat, but hey, that's interesting for sure. And also to some more stats as well, UTEP, the only home team in Conference USA tonight to not win.
Oh, nice. Wow,
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting in itself. I mean, it just tells you home teams are just
There it
winning
is.
at a high clip in Conference USA. Here's the next one for you, Sal. Blowout percentage. That means games that are decided by over 20 points. Only 2 of the 18 games have been decided by blowouts. So they're not close games. They're not necessarily blowouts. To your point, it's all between 5 and 19 points, really, these games are being decided by.
You know what's the best part? We're barely in the early leg of January.
I know.
We got another 1 and 3/4 of basketball to play in Conference USA.
So you're saying there's a chance for a 2-bid league?
I'm not saying all that. Maybe
Man.
if you count
I'm just joking with you.
postseason bids, yes, definitely.
Okay. The JD Aziz tweets into the program. This game was just plain embarrassing. We read this one earlier today, but actually this is from Joe Chacon. Battle lost, but still sitting at 12-4 and 2-1 in conference play. There's still plenty more ball to play. Calm down, take a breath, and tomorrow's another day. Hashtag win the rest. Hashtag win the West. Hashtag reppin' from El Chuco now. Hashtag Brock is my OG. That's all I'm going to read right now. Good stuff, Joe Chacon. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm totally with you. Plenty more to play. A lot more college basketball, a lot more Conference USA basketball to play. And for the Miners, it just doesn't sit well. It'll feel nightmarish, Zay, when we're looking back on this one. This one will just feel like a nightmare. Miners go in with all the hype. They sell out the Dawn. They have all the hype around this game, and they just fall flat and completely lose at home.
Yeah, it really is starting to feel like UTEP is just cursed, right? I mean, I feel like this is the conversation. We had it a little bit earlier, but there's so many instances of this happening. Like, what happened? Was there like a bet made with somebody? Like, this UTEP team, this UTEP athletics program just feels cursed, right? It was the volleyball loss in the Conference USA Championship, and then they lose in the NCAA tournament. UTEP loses tonight. UTEP football loses Southern Utah to start the Scotty Wald. I mean, we can go on and on. Like, that's the bad thing is there are so many instances of this. But you just hope that UTEP learns from it. You hope that they take this one, do some soul searching, like I said earlier, and are somehow able to get better from a loss like this.
Devious tweets into the program, during the pregame workout, the Aggies seemed a lot more hyped and pumped up. Miners looked lethargic and way too relaxed. I dismissed that as being a negative, but it was just a foreshadowing of what was to come. I'll say this, George, I thought the fans were really into it early on, and I thought, in the pregame dunks and all that, the vibes were high. I don't know if I necessarily saw lethargic warm-ups. Did you?
No, I agree with you. I think that was one of the most energetic crowds before an actual game that I've ever seen. And it was funny. I was speaking to Sal when I got here right after the game about how New Mexico State looked. I didn't really think that they looked locked in. They were missing dunks. They were missing layups in their line. And I was like, they're kind of like goofy out here right now. And so I definitely, like, Otis Frazier was doing windmills. And I was like, oh my God, it might be one of those games where we lay it on them. And it was the complete reverse. Maybe they spent too much energy trying to jump out the gym in those warm-up lines. I don't know. But it definitely wasn't a precursor to what we saw.
Okay, Adrian at Enemy Win 3 tweets into the program. How does NMSU do a total rebuild and get better than UTEP in such a short time? And UTEP is in year 4. Why do we keep getting it wrong? Alberto, how would you answer that?
That's a great question. I don't think UTEP's necessarily getting it wrong, right? You lose one game, but in the greater scheme of things, I think you're in a great position if you're the UTEP Miners. And as far as this one, well, I think it's just you got to chalk it up to confidence. I think the Miners just came out way too confident and they got punched in the mouth. But I don't think that this athletics program as a basketball program is inherently doing anything wrong. I just think that today a better team came out and surprised them. I think you played too confident, and this is what happens. But I don't think that anything is being done wrong per se.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that completely. Guys, I think we're winding it down here on the program. I think everybody got what they needed to get off their chest here on MinerTalk and vented throughout. If anybody's listening to this, they want to say one more thing that we forgot to say, 915-505-6009. That's our telephone number to get into the program. 600 ESPN El Paso on Twitter and X, and 600 ESPNElPaso.com. Liberty on Thursday, FIU Saturday. Sal, is it a split? I'm picking split. I don't think they beat Liberty. I do think they beat Florida International, and that's how I look at next week. Miners come back home at 13-5 overall.
Oh, it's tough, man. I don't feel extremely confident saying a sweep, but I don't feel confident in saying that they'll get swept. So, yeah, give me the split as well. I don't know who. It could go either way. I'll say this. FIU's record, just the way that they've played, especially in Conference USA, is not indicative of what their overall and actual conference record is. They're some dogs, man. They can put it on you. So if they have a chance, you got to look out. And a lot of teams in Conference USA, they have chances in these games against each other.
Final comments from our brain trust over here as the Miners go on the road. Liberty on Thursday, FIU Saturday. We'll start with you, Alberto. Thoughts as the Miners kind of try to turn the page here?
I think I'm expecting a great game against Liberty. They need a bounce back game. They need to get right game. So I'm expecting them to play hard out there. Liberty, whatever happens after that, I'm not too sure, but they need to take it to Liberty. They need to play absolutely lights out. If not, then you're really going to start to worry.
All right, George, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I definitely see them coming out with a much better effort than they did today. I don't know if it's going to be enough for the win. I think the rebounding still haunts them, but I think the defense gets into a little bit more of a rhythm here and kind of gets back to where they were before this game and at least makes it a game out in Lynchburg. But I am with you guys. I think it's a split, and I think Liberty's the L there.
All right, go ahead, Zay.
Yeah, I'll go with everybody else. I think it's a split. Yeah, we'll see. that Liberty game, it really is going to tell us a lot, right? If they come out with some energy and some passion, right? Obviously, anything can happen in a Conference USA road game. We could see UTEP go undefeated. We can also see UTEP get swept on the road. Like, no clue what I'm expecting from this team on the road conference play. But, yeah, I mean, tonight, obviously a big letdown, 12,000 on the dot in the Don Haskins Center, which is cool. I like that they go with 12,000 for the official, seating attendance. 12,000. Like, it sounds so much better than 11,892. Like, get out of here with that number. 12,000.
Sal, you don't like the 12,000?
No, I started laughing because I'm like, how is this even possible? Whatever.
They counted me. They counted the scores table. They counted Zay. They counted
the referees.
Sidelines. They counted visuals deportivos. Yeah, they counted all of us.
Everybody, yeah.
Exactly. That's how they got to 12K. But that'll do it for us here on the program. Everybody, we really appreciate everybody chiming in on the program. We don't take ourselves too seriously at all here on MinerTalk, and we love to have fun. Special thanks to Wind Supply El Paso. They deliver the hot hand of the game. We're awarding David Terrell Jr. 17 points, 7 of 11 from the field. He had 5 assists in this matchup in 29 minutes, but it was a tough one to award anybody here on MinerTalk. We'll give David Terrell Jr. our only award here on the program tonight, and we will be back in action next week. Special thanks to Jack in the Box, the presenting sponsor here on MinerTalk. Special thanks to the District Pub and Kitchen West. We were out there before the game. Great crowd, great environment, and we had some fun out there at the District. We'll be back in action next week, and more to come with our programming as far as our live shows and also our pregame shows over there at the District. But for Sal Montes, for Zay Galindo, for George Guajardo, for Alberto Reta, for Inspo Lens and Chris, I'm Adrian Broadus. We are signing off tonight. Thank you so much for listening to MinerTalk right here on 600 ESPN El Paso.